Hannah Corcoran is a girl on fire. Since she was born, she has worked with several occupational and physical therapists who have assisted her in achieving her goals in the areas of academics, community service, relationships, independent living, employment, and much, much more. Hannah has also had the added support of her mother, Shannon Corcoran, who is an occupational therapist at Heartland Area Education Agency. Hannah is now 19 years old and, like most 19-year-old individuals, is excited about transitioning to life after school. This transition, however, is not happening overnight. The process actually began in middle school and continues on through her involvement in the Des Moines Public Schools 4 Plus program. It is through this program that she is able to work with Michelle Alexander, a physical therapist that serves the students in the Des Moines Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm 19 years old. I went to Roosevelt High School. I'm currently in Project Search, my second year of Project Search, which is a 4 Plus program. It's an international program, but it's the one I'm in is in the Des Moines Public Schools. Just learning some job skills, and this is my second year.
My name's Michelle Alexander, and I'm the physical therapist for the 4 Plus program, as well as for all the middle and high schools in the Des Moines Public Schools. And I've been Hannah's physical therapist since she was a sophomore in high school at Roosevelt, and then have continued on with her as she's transitioned from high school to the 4 Plus Project Search program. So transition in schools, planning for post-secondary begins in 8th grade and middle school when kids turn 14. And typically parents and students might be a little bit surprised by that because kids are only 14 years old, but it really is a process and does begin at that point in time. For Hannah, she did really well with that transition.
Mail was so small that we could just walk around, but then when Roosevelt is, my middle school mail and the other middle school, Callahan, combined, so it's double the size. And then, so I still use a power wheelchair, which we tried in middle school for just a couple hours a day. Then now I use it just all over Roosevelt and all over Methodist, where I am in Project Search. And that was so nice, so I'm not just exhausted at the end of the day. Then that was kind of the transition to high school. I was in the 4-333 requirements, so the regular, student has to do. I had an IEP, so academic. I had a reading goal and a math goal, and no PT, no OT. Yeah, that was really all I had for my IEP. Just some of those accommodations were great. I was in co-taught classes. And then as things got kind of harder my senior year, we went to the self-contained, which is just a special ed classroom versus a gen ed with a special ed teacher in the room. I really like some of those like algebra, kind of those geometry, and some of those math classes were harder because there's not a why behind it. Algebra, there's more kind of a why behind it.
Right. We do expect or ask that students at that transition time start attending their IEP meetings so that they can hear exactly what we're talking about, and it's not happening to them, that they're part of that team, they're part of the decision making. And Hannah always attended her meetings, and would always speak about what she wanted. Her parents were always very good about allowing that, encouraging that, so that we had Hannah's perspective, so that we weren't, again, just doing things to Hannah, but we were making her a part of that team, that IEP team. The self-advocacy piece is really, really important as Hannah, starts to, transition to that adulthood, and for her to be able to ask for help if she needs it is really important. And that starts at a young age. That can start in middle school. That can start even in elementary school. But that really needs to be part of her everyday skills, that she needs to be able to say, yes, I do need some help, or no, thank you, I appreciate you offering, but I don't need your help right now. I can do it independently. And so that's a big piece of what we as OTs and PTs should be working on is students advocating for themselves as they navigate their educational environments and then work environments, and then hopefully the community as well.
Silver cord, it's not a requirement, but you can choose to get over the course of 4 years, 120 hours of volunteer hours. So 30 hours a year. So I've volunteered 30 hours a year every year to get a silver cord on my neck as I walked across the stage at graduation. There's not very many kids that have OTs and PTs and on IEPs that do that, but I did it. We rang Salvation Army bells, volunteered at Meals from the Heartland, packaging meals for countries that don't have the food and nutrition that they need. What else did we do? We volunteered at the Ronald McDonald House, cooking meals for the parents of kids in the hospital at Methodist, actually. So. Yeah, it was really a kind of a tough thing. Am I gonna actually walk across the stage, or am I gonna do it in my power wheelchair? In the end, we decided that I truly walked across the stage. Michelle was a big part of that. I had some weakness in my left hand too, along with the OT, but am I gonna shake and grab with my left, or am I gonna shake then grab? And that's what I did have a bag that they just put it in, and then that was a lot easier, and they had ramps on both sides of the stage, and I walked across the stage, and it was just a million pounds lifted off your shoulders. Could have been done, but I chose to get some more education and job training at Project Search, which is a 4+ program that's actually international. So yeah, I've done 3 rotations for Project Search. I'm currently in radiation oncology. Before that, I was in radiology, and before that, I was in Central Supply. Central Supply, just picking orders for the hospital, delivering supplies to patient floors, just some of that general supply stuff. Radiology was just cleaning, taking out the soiled linens, making sure all the just general stuff is taken care of. Radiation oncology, I stock the rooms, get the warm blankets for patients. People with disabilities can work. We're trying to just prove it to them that there might have to be some modifications, but we can do the job. We can work, and OTs and PTs can help with some of those things.
Yes, my role with Hannah in Project Search is to help her ensure, number one, that she has access to simple things like a bathroom and access around the hospital, which, since it's all handicap accessible, wasn't difficult. However, on her job sites, one of her first job sites while she was still in high school that I helped with was at the Science Center of Iowa. And the OT and I problem solved any of the tasks that she would be doing just to ensure that she had access to the area and that she could perform the task safely. And if she was having trouble performing the task, could we modify the task, or could we give her a piece of equipment that would enable her to be independent with that task? We also problem solved some transportation from school down to the Science Center so that she could be independent with getting there via the bus in her power wheelchair. We talked about whether or not she would use her walker primarily, or whether it would be too fatiguing, and whether she would just do all of the tasks from her power wheelchair. And then as she graduated from high school, met her requirements, that's when she moved on to Project Search, where she could learn more of those job skills. And again, a lot of the same things, but really pretty job-specific tasks that OT and myself were helping with. I remember one specific one with down in radiation oncology, and she was having some trouble reaching items from tall shelves. And we were problem solving. Do we move things down to lower shelves? Do we give her a reacher? We did finally get the task figured out, and OT also was instrumental in helping to attach something to the back of her chair to enable her to be able to carry items from some of those rooms. The soiled linen, was it the soiled linen, Hannah, that you had to carry, that you put stuff in the basket on the back of your chair?
It was more of the supplies for the
supplies.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that came out of this was that Hannah's in a power wheelchair, but really for her to be able to perform some of her job tasks, she really could benefit from a power standing wheelchair. And so Hannah's mom was, being an OT, she was pretty on top of it and got a hold of a dealer to bring one in, and asked me if I could come and see how Hannah did in that. Hannah did great with the power standing wheelchair, which would enable her, if you think about being able to stand to get things and not have to reach from a sitting position all the time. And so it's been kind of a long process, but Hannah and her family were notified not too long ago that she will be getting her power standing wheelchair, which I think is going to enable Hannah to be independent in the workforce and also help with that transition to some more independent type living skills as well, which is another part of that 4+ program, working and living. So those have been some big things with Hannah that we've worked on.
I have a respite and SCL. That's through the Medicaid waiver. That's another thing that I really encourage the OTs and PTs to have their kids apply for the waiver. We applied for my 7th or 8th grade year, and it took 3 years to get on board with that. So, and we were just that transportation of, respite and SCL, so I don't have to be as great as mom and dad are. I don't have to be with them 24/7. Respite is staff people can, basically friends or whoever gets paid to come just kind of have fun with me, I guess, so to speak. And then SCL is supportive community living, so working on some of those goals to, whether it's cooking, transportation, or I started a club, Girls on Fire, where we get together once a month to just have fun, and our tagline is fun and philanthropy. So we come and we give back to the community. Everything from canned goods to the homeless shelter, sports equipment to a nonprofit that can give it to kids that can't afford, toiletries to the Young Women's Resource Center. So it's been going on for about a year now. That's kind of in a nutshell, but it's just nice to, now that I'm not in school anymore, just a way to get some younger girls together and kind of make new friends, hang out together.
Yeah, usually it's social workers, probably in the schools, but PTs and OTs can also suggest to parents applying for the waiver. It's a good idea because the waiting list is so long for waivers, and it does provide that respite, which is a good break for not only for the children but for parents, to be able to do just those everyday tasks that we take for granted, going to the grocery store, not having to load your kids up. Some home modifications if necessary, there's money for that. Vehicle modifications, there's money for that. And then equipment as well. And Hannah's waiver, her Medicaid, was a part of the payer source for that standing wheelchair. So that's invaluable because those pieces of equipment are very expensive. And so PTs and OTs, that we should be suggesting those things to parents. And if they don't want to, they don't want to, but at least giving them the knowledge so that they have that.
I have some condos over by kind of west of Milwaukee, over by kind of Jordan Creek, where they're building a complex for for young adults with special needs. So they're under construction right now. So once we can get in there and look at them, we'll kind of make a decision. Or we're looking at kind of a family man group home where I can live with, maybe a couple friends or a couple roommates that have kind of similar needs as I do, and come and kind of have staff from the waiver come in and kind of help with some of those bath aid, cooking, some of those skills that I haven't 100% mastered yet.
Hi, my name's Shannon Corcoran. I am Hannah's mom. I'm also an occupational therapist here at Heartland. As Hannah gets ready to exit her IEP here in the next year or year and a half, really looking at coordinating those services so that she can be successful upon completing her education. And so really those coordinating of services is going to really rely on Hannah and her dad and I to facilitate and help manage all of the pieces that are going to be required in order to set her up for success in that living, learning, and working going forward. And so right now, Hannah has a case manager through her Medicaid waiver, and so that case manager is instrumental in really coordinating different funding resources, transportation for Hannah to and from work. Hannah takes a private specialized transportation called Joyride, who has been wonderful. But without that waiver, a one-way trip costs upwards towards, I think, $40 to $60 for just a one-way trip. So to and from work would be at least $80 if we had to pay that privately. And so the funding, the referrals to different agencies. We've worked real closely with Voc Rehab too, and they have funded some internships that Hannah did this summer. They were paid internships that were a joint effort between Iowa Works and Voc Rehab. So those linkages are so important when we, as families and professionals, really try to identify those community linkages and really take advantage of those so that we can set our students up for success. You know, it's a team effort. So if it is a young person or a young student with a physical disability, I think the OT and PT expertise is unique in that we have that background knowledge to really, look at the student and see what sort of accommodations, modifications, using their strengths to really set them up to be successful in the school setting or in a work site. So I think, educators should tap into our OTs and PTs because we do have some of that background knowledge that, have you tried this? Can we, do it this way? And so trying to use some of that expertise for our students with physical disabilities. Yeah, I think OTs and PTs by nature are big picture people. So, we're good at finding strengths in our students and really capitalizing on those. And I think that's a strength of ours and something that we bring to the table as we sit around and plan IEPs and those sorts of things. So. I think that's definitely a role that we play.